Go ahead, Will.
Hey, Willu from the Hello and Welcome podcast.
What's happening?
What's up, Masai? How you doing, man?
I'm very good.
Hello and welcome. I'm your host, William Liu. I'm joined by co-host Alex Wong. This is the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway. We're going to have a nice little pick for you later, courtesy of Alex Wong. A reminder to everybody, please keep following all our channels, liking, subscribing, commenting. You know the whole deal by now. We've been urging you for months, but the Raptor season is coming back in full swing, and our show is obviously coming back into full swing. 3 episodes per week, plus all the React pods, all the things that you love and have enjoyed in the past. And so for people who are still trying to find where Will and Alex went, this is where we went, and let people know. And the easiest way to do that is by following on our accounts and sharing our stuff. But enough about that. We just came back. Well, actually, I just came back from Media Day, straight to Division 88. Shouts to the studio that we're working with here. And yeah, Alex, man, you were at home.
What's going on, man?
What's going on, man? You good?
Yes, sorry, some plans came up this morning, couldn't make it to Media Day.
Really, huh? You live so close to the arena.
But really glad you were able to there to represent the Nation Network.
Oh, man.
And the Hello and Welcome podcast.
You said you got chills.
I got chills. I got chills when you interacted with Masai. It's always great. Media Day, first day of school vibes. They were talking about that today.
Yeah.
And I think Media Day is all about setting expectations, getting excited about the team again. So yeah, Masai and Darko were very adamant about setting expectations that this is going to be a rebuilding year.
Yeah. This is, I know there's that running meme of like Masai likes to say winning like 50 times a press conference. And I think he said it like 3 times. He said it like, I don't know, man. Like if you're going to if you're going to Oasis concert, they're going to have to play Wonderwall, but that's probably not the song that they're most like excited to play. They probably want to play something else. And I think Masai did hit us with one. You play the game to win, but in general, I think they're being fairly realistic. I think they kind of sold it as this is the year 1 of a rebuild. The question for me is like, what was last year then? Was last year just an entire waste of time? Which I think it kind of was.
Well, I think last year, I think people who watched Media Day too, Darko was using this analogy of rebuilding, of just, I guess, building a house from scratch, putting all the pieces in. Last year was tearing the house down, I guess.
Last year, I guess, was tearing the house. Was securing. Raptors were renting. It feels, you know what I mean? Like when you're starting lineups with like Jordan Nwora and Jonte Porter and Grady Dick, you're kind of renting that place. You're not owning that, right? So I think it was kind of funny because last year at Media Day, when we were there for that one, like it was at a hotel. It was like, it was like, even the whole setup felt different. Like this one was kind of like a very run-of-the-mill Media Day. I don't think anything that was said here outside of what Masai said about Dikembe Mutombo, which is actually a really, really beautiful, moving tribute. Outside of that, like it wasn't like anything was creating like headlines for the Raptors, which like I think Media Day in general is about creating headlines, set expectations, building some excitement. And I think more than anything else, they just realized, okay, we're down right now, but hopefully we can come back up. So that's the kind of perspective that came in. So I don't know, like I've been to more exciting Media Days, I'll say that much, but at the same time, like it's a pretty realistic view of what's happening with the team right now.
Yeah, and I think like last year too, I felt like even after the trades and stuff, and I feel like over Masai's tenure here, he's always been like against using the word rebuilding.
Sure.
Like anytime it's been brought up, he's pushed back against it. This is really like the most definitive that he's been about it. And I think it's probably really difficult for him, like after making all the trades, like he's always talking about winning and stuff. But like you mentioned, man, that's the team for this year. And a lot of people talking about how many wins they're going to get. I know that, the over-under win totals have them at about 30.
Yeah.
This sounded to me today like a team that's going to be around there and not really prioritizing wins per se for the season.
Yeah, I think the closest that we got an answer to this was when Grange asked Masai about sort of just like, this upcoming draft and how you can acquire talent. And Masai gave a very neutral statement. He was like, obviously we understand how important the draft is for this organization and stuff like that. But I think the number that people are putting out there, 30, I don't think it's like this team is a 30-win quality team. I think the 30 is pricing in the fact that like if they choose to go all out, they played super hard, everything gelled together. Like there's obviously a path that this team can get to like, between 35 to 40 wins, like in that like 500 range. Right, where you're in the play-in. Like, I'm not saying this is going to be a team that blows people out the water, but, like, there's enough talent there to be, like, a good team that wins, like, pretty much every other night. But there's also the real possibility that if things do go wrong, like they have 1 or 2 key injuries, and already the Raptors have 2, right, with Bruce Brown and Jacoby Walter. We'll talk about that. But if there's anything that goes wrong to anybody on the roster, there's a real chance that this team could take the off ramp, which they've done the last couple of years, which is just like, okay, you know what, we're actually going to pivot into this other direction. And so I know, like, for the players are enthusiastic. They want to, make a bid for it. Scottie's go-to line these days is like, you know what, we're really going to try to push and be competitive. I'm not trying to hear about rebuild. But the reality of the situation is like, this team could very well look at next year's draft and add more to this core. But at the same time, like, I don't know, man. I they're not like a 30-win quality team. If they play all out and really try to play well, I think they can win every other game.
I think it just depends on what they prioritize, like you said. Like, I get if they're playing all out and stuff, that might be a better team than a 30-win team. I just don't know if they're going to do that. There's so many rookies too, and guys that they want to develop. But I thought it was interesting too. Like, they were asking Darko about just like emphasis for this year, and it seems like, people were generally impressed by like, the offense last season, the ball movement and things like that. Yeah. And now it's tilted all back towards, because the defense is kind of fallen apart. Darko talked about emphasizing the defense, on-ball defense, saying, quote, everything comes down to playing with a lot of effort and finishing possessions. Yeah. But what do you make of just like that side of the ball for the Raptors in terms of like, is there any optimism there?
I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's because like I'm too focused on like game to game. Part of doing a daily show is like you're focused on the day to day, and you're focused on like the react pod of every single game, and you know how like invested I get in every game. And for me, what was driving me nuts was just like, for the first time in basically a decade, like basically before even Dwayne Casey took over, the Raptors just would not play defense for like weeks at a time. And you would look at sort of the Raptors, like what they would try to set up to do defensively, let's say against a key matchup, like you see Embiid, for example, you see Giannis, or you see Steph, like guys that you need to change your whole defense for. And they would try to put a plan in on paper, and by the middle of the first quarter, you're like, they've already screwed up 3 times, and Darko's had to call timeout. So that was the first time in a decade where I feel like the Raptors just weren't invested in defense. Even the Nick Nurse years were like a little bit like grimy towards the end, and it was very frustrating. That team still grinded on defense, and so it reminds me of a combo that Darko came up to us when we were at Summer League. This is back in July. And, I was just like, what do you think of the team? Just like regular small talk, whatever. Darko's very friendly. He makes time for everybody. And he was like, yeah, we did a lot of complicated stuff on offense last year, but that the most important thing is we got to defend. Now we got to really, really focus on defense. So we'll see. I think that there's lots of individual improvement. He pulled out another great quote. He was like, there's a new quote in the league, or new term, the MIG.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. MIG.
Is it most important guy?
Yeah, most important guy. That's right.
MIG. We're getting Miggy with it this year? Okay.
We need Miggy Iguodala to solve this defense.
I need you to have, for your post-game show, the Miggy Award this year.
I might actually...
Can we have a Miggy Award?
I'm loving Mig. Okay. Yeah. It's kind of like man of the match, you know what I mean? Like that little award they get out after every soccer match.
Can we also have leg in terms of least important guy? Who was getting leggy with it?
No, Ligma? It's crazy, man.
So Darko was talking about on defense.
Yeah, the MIG.
Like, there's a most important guy that they always emphasize.
And, he highlighted that in sort of historically, like, it's been a center that has sort of cleaned up a lot of mistakes and protected the rim. And now he's like, the MIG is whoever's guarding the ball.
Right, on ball.
Yeah, so it's like,
point of attack.
If that's the case, then first off, like, your on-ball defense across the board has to be improved. Like, you can't have any weak spots, right?
Well, do they have enough good on-ball defenders on this team?
The answer is no, but I think it's like you got to develop that into them. Okay. And you got to like hammer that point into them all season. And so, I mean, like, I think Darko's on the right path with it. It's just a matter of like, can you actually get guys to come through and be responsible? I think the other part that was adorable with Darko was like, he was like, man, I realized this year I got to, delegate more to my assistants, because he realized the first year he's like, I'm trying to like make time for medical, make time for my assistant coaches, make time for the players, make time for the media, make time for management. He's like, I'm managing like 50 people. I'm like, yeah. It's kind of like, it was also his rookie season.
So you're saying Pat Delaney's workload is about to tick up?
Oh man, Pat Delaney, buddy. No more coaching the media game for Pat and Jama, all right?
No,
gotta pass that off.
Shout out to Darko, man. Darko low-key might be one of the top content creators amongst NBA coaches. It's like every time he speaks, he'd be dropping a couple things that you can run with.
But I also feel like Darko's got to get smoother with like the storytelling, because I feel like when he came out with that story about like the building the house, I'm like, I know you practice that in the mirror, or like somebody.
Yeah, this was like a pre-scripted.
This is a pre-scripted
situation.
idea. Like JQ in the back was like, all right, here's Darko. When they ask you a tough question, let's talk about building houses. I'm like, all right. But no, but like it was a very realistic kind of media day. You know what I mean? And
For sure.
for me, like one of the things I'm trying to just think about with this season is sort of where are the key guys at? You know, like obviously Scottie, quickly, RJ, where are they at? And so the most important player there is Scottie, and that's why I decided to ask Masai, like, you know, look, you've bet the whole franchise on him now, right? You've reoriented everything to sort of, and obviously you paid him on top of that too. What's making you confident about his growth as a person? And I liked what Masai said. Masai said the biggest change with Scottie is just seriousness. You know, like, and when he first came to the league, he's young, he's so hyper, you know, like everyone kept talking about how he was hugging everybody all the time and stuff like that, which is good in its own way. But we've also seen, especially behind the scenes, moments of immaturity as well that I think blended into the court as well. And especially now that pretty much everybody else is gone, right? If the wins and losses fall on him now too. So it's like, is that maturity going to be there night in and night out? And of course, it's easier to say that now. But in the moments of adversity, are they going to happen like that? Like that game last year that stood out to me was like, there was a Spurs game, right? When Wemby came to Toronto and he had 10 blocks that game. You watched that game and I was like, I seen the last time Wemby played against Scottie. Scottie hit that big three. Remember the step back three? He forced overtime and he honestly outplayed Wemby in that game. And that was the start of the season. That was like November. But when it came back to like coming back to Toronto, that game, like Scottie was like, I felt like he was just disengaged in the game. And now that you're the leader, that can't ever happen anymore. So I think that's where, for me, when Masai said he's more serious as a person, I loved hearing that. And I'm looking forward to seeing what that looks like this year and beyond.
Yeah, I think that's by far the number one storyline on the court for this team. And, you know, sometimes just taking a step back, and Masai said this too, like Scottie's still only 23. And I know a lot of times, like, you know, the way we're scrutinizing the players, like game to game, year to year, like even around the league, you look at guys like, I don't know, like Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown are good examples because they've been scrutinized for like the past half decade. Like Scottie's been put into a lot of different roles the last few years, like different teams and stuff.
Yeah, that's fair.
So again, it's like not making those excuses for him, but like now you've got the contract. Now the team is clearly being built around you.
Right.
Like Masai's talking about you in this way, and he's talked about you since you were here. And Scottie himself talked about it today, that he worked on the leadership and building that chemistry.
He said he worked on his communication skills.
Yeah, worked on his communication skills.
Which I'm not sure what that necessarily means.
I mean, we're all working on our communication skills.
Yeah?
Yeah.
All right. Duolingo?
And he was citing, he was asked about like, who he might emulate his leadership approach after. And he talked about how he's more of an on-court leader, maybe not as much as a vocal leader.
Yeah.
But trying to pick up from Garrett Temple as well.
Sure, yeah.
You know, which is why I guess that's GT's role this year, you know?
Oh,
Leadership coach, MBPA guy.
He's like the Tony Robbins of the NBA, man.
Trying to get the players out of this second apron era already.
Yeah. No.
But this is the thing with Scottie now. It's like, let's see what takes place on the court, but now the expectation is, even at your age, like you got to take that leadership role, and like you mentioned, you got to set the tone on the floor at all times.
No, for sure. And I think that's one of the beautiful things about basketball. Like, it's a team sport until it isn't, right? Like, and that's so many games. Like, that's honestly a lot of why when the Raptors played Cleveland so many years, and like 3 years in a row in the playoffs, it was like, all right, team wise, like Raptors probably playing better over the course of 82 game season sometimes, but like when it comes down to it, like that's the beauty of basketball. Like the team sport becomes an individual sport. And I do think that in those takeover moments, I would love to see more of that from him. I think on the defensive end, he could take that challenge on. I think on the offensive end, I would love to see him take that challenge on. And he talked about sort of one of the focuses, at least on the court, in addition to the off-court stuff, he really wanted to work on his on-ball creation, getting to his own shot, getting to his spots. And again, I'm just like really excited to see what it looks like. Because again, like it's something that I think Kelly mentioned, because he was like, yeah, I got traded here. You know, other guys came here mid-season last year, RJ, IQ and stuff. And all of a sudden, like they played like 60 minutes together and then they got hurt. So it's like, can we actually see this group after with the full training camp, like what they look like? And before we jump ahead to like, are they going to tank and all that kind of stuff? Can I at least see what it looks like? First 20, 25 games. Let me see what it looks like. If they're like 5-25, by all means, continue to tank and go into this draft. But also at the same time, as we said in the previous episodes, like they've invested a lot in this group existing already. They got to show you something, even starting now, that like this is something we can build on long term with.
Yeah, and I think on the bright side too, like we've looked at the schedule. Like the schedule is really tough coming out of the gate. So we're gonna find out right away, like what this team is and isn't, and like what they're gonna need. So I think we'll have a good sense of them. Like probably by the time Vince Carter comes to get his jersey retired.
Oh, buddy.
Couple of other more on court things. So Masai was asked about Bruce Brown, who had his knee surgery, and Masai said his knee was fine all summer, but he was cleared, and it flared up once he started to ramp up for the season recently, and that's why they opted for surgery. Is that a satisfactory answer for you in terms of how this was approached?
I mean, like we said at the time of the injury, like when it was announced that like, this is obviously how it probably would have gone down this way regardless, but this is obviously how they're going to talk about it. I think for me, it's just like, if he's been cleared and then he like got it re-aggravated, is it going to be a recurring issue? You know what I mean? Because again, if it's a recurring issue, all of a sudden it does cut down the value. I mean, I don't know. Bruce was around for media day, but yeah, I don't know. Like, there's nothing else to say about it, really. Like, I would love to see the best of Bruce Brown in the Toronto Raptors jersey to create the most value for him so that we can move off of it. Yeah. Like, and we said this like 86 different ways across 2 different shows now.
Yeah, we'll be doing it many more times during the season.
Brother.
Jacoby Walter announced last week is going to be out for training camp with a shoulder injury. Masai says he doesn't expect it to be a huge setback, but obviously he's not going to start with the team.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be very valuable for a rookie to go through as many experiences as possible in the rookie season, and that obviously includes training camp. But at the same time, like I don't know, I didn't see him in the rotation to start the season anyway. But yeah, it would have been, I don't know. I mean, what I've heard is it's not that serious either, but like still, it will cost him at least training camp. Yeah,
and Masai went out of his way during his presser to talk about his relationship with Ed Rogers.
Oh, yes.
Saying that they've had the exact same relationship for 10 years. And with regards to, first of all, having the same exact relationship with someone for 10 years doesn't mean it's good or bad. And also to the speculation that there's, drama between them, conflict. He said, quote, there's nothing, there's zero. There's zero going on.
You know what? It was funnier even seeing it in person because, like, I think someone asked him, like, because as you would, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And it wasn't like, hey, are you and Ed okay? It was sort of like, hey, change in ownership. Yeah. And he was like, let me get ahead of the narrative. And he just kept building and getting louder and more, like, intense about it. He's like, we're okay, guys? We're okay. We're great. Like all
You're saying it wasn't believable.
All these billionaires, man, I'm good with them, man. Larry Tannenbaum, a mentor. Ed Rogers, we're great. Like, I'm like, all right, man. Like,
and he even defended Ed little because people are really upset mostly about Ed Rogers being difficult during his last contract negotiations. Yeah. And Masai said, quote, like, negotiations are tough. Yeah. And he has never treated me any differently. And then he was asked about whether they were going to have conversations about, a next contract. Because his contract is not up until after next season. Sure. But Masai kind of shot that down too, basically saying that I'm here for a bit and it's not something that they're thinking about right now.
Yeah, like, I think that's the sense that I had heard prior to this too, was just like, it was primarily based off the negotiation. I think the concern then was like, the average GM wasn't making $15 million, right? Maybe the average GM salary was like $5 million. So I think on the negotiation side, they were like, well, management was like, why are we paying him 15? Like, you know what I mean? Like, why are we jumping that high? Obviously, like, eventually they got it done, and they got it done at that number, right? So I think that was sort of the main point of contention, and I think that's what Masai is referring to when he's saying that, like, negotiations are tough, and that honestly, like, of all people, I wouldn't cry for Masai or any GM, because that's literally their job. Their job all day is to negotiate, So I'm not worried about that front. But again, like, it was kind of funny to hear about even just like how emphatic he was about it, because like this report came out like 2 years ago. It wasn't like a new thing. Like, if he like there was and he's done like probably 5-6 press conferences in the time since, and he's been asked about these similar situations.
Yeah, no, it's
so true. It was just now where it became like a really big thing. But again, like, I don't know. Is it a storyline you're tracking? Like, are you worried about?
Not
ownership?
really. I mean, I think Masai's future is going to be in his hands. I feel like he's done enough for the organization, but I think there's an evaluation period now too of Masai, and I think Masai realizes that too. For as much as he's done for the organization, like, you're still looking at like the body of work in the last few years.
For sure.
And what it means kind of stripping down the roster and making the bet to build around Scottie with this young group.
Yeah.
So it looks like, they're looking at it as a longer term thing, calling this year one of rebuilding.
Yeah.
So it's by the time his contract is up, like the team is still probably not going to be coming together yet. So I think it'll be an interesting time period to start discussing Masai's future when we hit that point.
Yeah. So. I do think that like the best case scenario for Masai is that this team actually makes a run this year. And by makes a run, I mean like they're 500. They're they're like competitive. They get like a number of like exciting wins where you don't expect them to win, but they get it. Kind of like similar to the championship defense season. Like that season, like obviously they were really successful. They won like 70% of their games. I'm not expecting that for this year, but it was like they had so many memorable wins. Like when they would play Philly again and they had Embiid to 0, and they played the Lakers and they beat them like twice, and they like played. Yeah, even when they played the Clippers with Kawhi and Paul George and they were like all the rage, they still played them like super tough and lost in the last minute. Like all these games that got you excited, got you motivated to see them. They beat Milwaukee in that stretch too. So it was like, okay, so can we get a couple of those wins to sort of get excited about this group? I think once you do that, I think Masai will be in a really good spot. But regardless, like, I don't know. The one theme I thought about going into today was like, what's the leadership going to be to like get this through? And there's a lot of discussions. I mean, I even asked Masai about the Scottie thing, but I think like more than anything else, like the leadership comes from the top. And I do think that, I don't know, as a person, and maybe people don't want to hear this right now, as a person, Masai as a leader, as a person, to me just seems like next level. Because when he came back out, so the timeline of today was like Masai spoke at 9:30, then Darko at 10, and then Scottie at 10:30, and they just kind of like there was like a kind of an assembly line, like just guys kind of streaming in and out in a sequence, and they even give you a time list so that you know who's going to come up when. And the one time that rhythm was broken was the news broke about like around 10-ish that like Dikembe Mutombo unfortunately had passed away at the age of 58 due to brain cancer, which I don't know if anyone was familiar that he had that, to be honest. And Masai, who had already spoken, he actually came back out to make sure that he was able to speak on behalf of this. And I think when I saw that, and I think anyone who watched what Masai said and the way he said it, like that to me is real leadership. Like being vulnerable, being like thoughtful, being able to sort of speak from the heart, and give context to like, I mean, it's media day, so we're like, okay, what's going on with the Raptors? Like, there's bigger things than the Raptors. You know what I mean? Like, first off, a great NBA player has passed away. But also, in particular, Dikembe was like this like first African superstar to come out and break out in the NBA and was such a personable player. I guess he wasn't the first one. Sorry, Hakeem was before him too. But like still like one of the first iconic like African players to join the league, and all the things he's done as in terms of post career. Like, he talked about the building, the hospital, but also the things individually he did for Masai and the example that he set and how much that sort of inspires him and other players or other people to sort of continue like rebuilding and enriching their societies back home. Like when Masai made that speech, I'm like, damn, I don't think I would ever want a better person to lead the Raptors than Masai. Maybe I disagree with some of the moves and the timing. As a person, as a leader, like I think we're actually really, really good. And we've been very blessed to have a really, really a good-hearted man at the top of this for a while.
No, I agree with you, man. And I think when the conversation comes about like Masai's future, you can, on one side evaluate him as a basketball guy and like how he's built the team. Right. Well, you mentioned moments like today, and we've seen a lot of other moments too. Like even the way he handled, the security guard situation in the aftermath of like, winning the championship and having that, that moment robbed from him. And so many other times he's just like put other things in the organization like ahead of himself, right? So when we finally have the conversation about Masai's long-term future here, that's the kind of stuff you're gonna lose as well, right? When you lose a Masai.
For sure.
It's not like Daryl Morey can come in and fill those shoes.
Nah, man, Daryl Morey got a different legacy, but we don't talk about it.
Is there anything else from Media Day that we didn't touch on that you would like to bring to the table?
There was also, I did ask Darko about RJ.
Okay.
Which I don't know if he misinterpreted it.
So what was your question?
So my question, at least my thought process with it was like, first off, no one had talked about RJ to that point, right? Masai had gone up to speak. Darko had spoken. It's been like basically like 40 minutes of interviews at this point. And I wanted to ask about RJ, who's like the third most important guy. Like, Scottie and Emmanuel have been talked about. I think even Grady might have been mentioned. So it's like, and one of my questions with, I think some people have with RJ, and I did too to some degree, was like, he played really well, like better than expectations coming to Toronto. Is that sustainable? And if so, like how did you get to the point where you're able to improve, especially your scoring efficiency? Because that was the biggest jump from RJ, right? And so maybe the way I phrased the question was sort of like, oh, everyone knew RJ was inefficient, but he came to Toronto and he was good. Which, like, honestly, like it's not untrue, I don't think. Or maybe I don't think I mischaracterized sort of like the perception on RJ so far. But he was like, no, we never had a conversation about his efficiency. Maybe you did on your podcast, which I'm like, honestly, like that's
hello,
that's
and
cute,
welcome,
man.
getting clapped back.
Yo,
that's former Raptors show getting clapped back.
It was kind of sick. But I mean, like, even still, like, I wanted to ask about RJ and just like his role in all this. And I eventually asked Kelly about RJ as well, because I realized that Kelly has probably seen RJ play since he was like a kid, all the way up through the Canada program.
Yeah, this is not a LeBron lying thing. He has seen him as a kid.
He's actually done all this, and like he actually gave like a really good perspective on RJ. He's like, this is actually the best I've seen him shoot the ball, which I think is actually a really, really notable thing. Like, but he's finding himself, and also he's super young still. That stuff to me, like I thought was very meaningful, because RJ, he's not like he's not spoken about, but like it just wasn't a big theme of the team. Like Scottie is like such a big focus, and then Quickly is a big focus too. Maybe it's just those guys got paid in the offseason.
Sure.
But no, I think RJ is a huge part of this, man. And like I actually would like to talk to Darko about like what kind of things they saw in RJ to make him like as efficient as he is now.
Yeah. Well,
right?
Thankfully we're heading to Montreal for training camp this week. So hopefully be able to get into some of those conversations with Darko. Any fun behind the scenes stuff? Did you run into friend of the program Chris Boucher at all? See any other players that didn't take the podium?
Didn't run into that many players. So they did it at Scotiabank Arena this time. Yeah. So it was a much bigger space as compared to like the hotel. So they've sometimes
did they have the MLSE seat fillers like they did for that Kawhi presser?
They did bring some people. God damn, why'd you make me do this, man?
My bad. We can move on.
No.
That's a personal question for me.
They brought out a crowd. They shouted out a couple employees. Again, like media day is first day of school kind of vibes, right?
Man.
So like
everybody all friendly and shit.
Everyone's pretty friendly. There was no adversarial questions. I mean, there's no reason to be, right? Like everyone knows sort of what it is, and we don't have to pretend like it's something different. What else, man? I mean, I think the big thing was just talking to Matt Bonner, Raptors show.
Yeah. New Raptor show on Sportsnet.
Yeah.
Blake Murphy, Matt Bonner.
That's right. They were putting in work,
New logo.
New logo.
Shouts to Derek. Shouts to JR.
Shouts to Derek and JR, man.
Jennifer Rolnick.
Yeah, of course, squad. Man. The whole crew. No, it was just like Matt Bonner coming up being like, yo, it's like we got the same barber, and also I'm doing the job you just did.
You got the same barber? So when we do an episode with Bonner, should we go to
Hologround?
Yeah, Hologround.
Hologround's just around the corner from Division 88. We could legit go
and just have you and Bonner just kick it while you're getting your ponytail trimmed.
Oh man,
is that what we're gonna do?
Split ends aren't gonna cut themselves.
Oh man.
It's $50 with split ends cut. Just kidding.
You didn't see glimpses because you didn't see glimpses of no purple jersey. I'm sure
no. So all the players were walking around. So on media day, every player has like one member of the media, like the PR staff, like walking around with them the whole day, like their handler basically. Yeah. And the handler's
Justine Jones with, man.
I don't know if I mean,
I want a player handler report sheet.
God damn it, man. Who was who? Josh Sue had RJ Barrett.
Okay.
Yeah.
Little Canadian connection,
Sure.
Little CanCon. That's it. That's all you got.
No, I mean I don't want to pretend like I know every member because they go deep in the bench too. They pulled a 905 media people and stuff too. Nice. But everyone had their purple jersey with them.
Okay,
they just weren't wearing it to the podium.
But it was visible. It was there.
It was like carried around by their handler the whole time. Yeah,
because there's a photo. The Raptors social tweeted a photo of like Grady, I guess, coming out of a dinosaur egg.
Yeah,
and he's got the purple on. So the teasing continues.
Wow,
I love the teasing at this point when everything's already been announced.
Bro, we've been edged, bro. We're actually getting edged with these jerseys. It's actually crazy. We want to take this moment in the podcast to let you know that Tangerine is the official bank of the Hello and Welcome podcast. Of course, you already know about Tangerine. You've seen them on the broadcast. They're the official bank of the Toronto Raptors and its fans. They're also a foundational partner of the WNBA and the NBA. And the reason we want to partner with Tangerine and vice versa is because we share the same vision. They are so dedicated to growing the game of basketball in Canada. They're dedicated to servicing its fans, and they've just been great partners. If you haven't seen already, we gave away some jerseys, we gave away some season tickets already, and we can look forward to more of those opportunities coming up this season. So with Tangerine, they're about forward banking, and that means that there's no unfair fees, there's no overly complicated products, and definitely no expensive brick and mortar branches. To learn more about Tangerine, you go to tangerine.ca. Tangerine, the official bank of the Toronto Raptors and its fans, and the official bank of Hello and Welcome and its fans.
All right, before we wrap up, a couple of other items outside of Media Day.
Yeah, let's do it.
So Raptors related, speaking of edging, the Raptors finally announced on Friday because
you better be talking about Melvin edging.
Because MLSE and the City of Toronto completed this $1 million refurbishment project at the Dixon Park basketball courts.
Yes.
And Vince Carter came to the city on Friday for the ribbon cutting ceremony. Masai was there. A lot of other, some of the Raptors were there.
A lot of the Raptors were there, yeah.
Former Raptors were there, Alvin Williams and others popped out. And that was when, I know it had been reported earlier in the week by Josh Lewenberg that the retirement ceremony was taking place on November 2nd. But officially it was when the team finally announced it on the Friday. And, Masai gave a speech at center court. Vince addressed the crowd as well. And, Masai said, quote, the Vince Carter effect is real, basically referencing his impact on the city.
Sure.
And he says it doesn't matter what happened. Time heals. We're very, very proud of the path he set for us. And Vince commented too, and he said, quote, I know there are people with mixed feelings.
Yep.
That's fine and that's fair and that's okay, but let's enjoy the moment. So Vince Carter in town.
No, I mean, first off, I gotta hand it to MLSE. I think the rollout was actually really well done. Like, did you like the jerseys placed all around the city?
Yeah, the jerseys. Spots? So the Vince Carter jerseys were being placed all around the city.
Right.
I walked to Scotiabank Arena to see.
Oh, you had time to go to Scotiabank that day, but not today.
What? I was really busy this morning.
You're really busy this morning, man.
Yeah, I had a couple calls to take.
Sure, Mondays are hard.
So at first, silly me, I thought the first one there gets to grab the jersey. I didn't know it was a decorative.
It ain't a Willy Wonka's
and then I got there and I was like,
situation.
man, I need to climb on a Safeway tour bus to have a chance to grab these. Anyways,
but they were not up for grabs, were they? I mean, I guess people could steal.
They were not up for grabs.
People could steal.
They were hung very high up too. It was not up for grabs. But super cool. Did it all around the city. But I'm still trying to gauge the thing about just the emotional connection of Vince and with Raptors fans. And listen, we're gonna end up talking in circles about this, and that's why I want Michael Grange to come sit down with us next week, right before Vince gets into the Hall of Fame induction.
Yep.
I think the three of us have very different perspectives.
Sure,
come into the Raptors on different eras, be able to talk about, have one conversation, and do it. But it is still interesting to me that it's I compare it to if Kyle comes back or DeMar comes back.
Oh, that would be universal.
The connection
love.
just doesn't. I'm not saying it's not there, but it's it just, I don't know, something just feels missing. And maybe the missing is the fact that there was just such a long period in Vince's career and life where he was not associated with Toronto.
Yeah, so I got a couple of things with this. Number one, I think weirdly enough, this is the happy ending that everybody outside of Toronto wanted for Vince in Toronto. So I'm talking about the NBA fans and the league as a whole, right? Always wanted to because Vince was super cool. And I think into the rest of the league, in terms of if you're just a general NBA fan, you're way more invested in Vince as a incredible player, as a highlight maker, all that kind of stuff, as you were about his exit. Honestly, that hurts us here in Toronto. Doesn't even register outside of that. No one even cares. They're oh, Vince left Toronto. Cool. They were a bad team, and now he went to New Jersey and started going to the playoffs again. Which honestly, that's what players do today all the time, right? I think so. Number one, I think the NBA fan at large wanted this for Toronto and Vince, was to sort of kiss and make up. I think the other thing too is just it's interesting because it's almost now skipped a generation where it's I know that for a lot of the fan base now, they're probably honestly, if you're 30 and younger, there's no way you remember how vitriolic it was in that time. There's no way Vince actually hurt your feelings in the moment. You might just think back on it. It's why are we honoring a player which the exit was so ugly? And that's the part you talked about already, but you can't get away from how ugly it was. And so a lot of people are we shouldn't ever honor this, or we should honor Kyle first or whatever. But I think that's interesting because it's skipping a generation now. Usually the trauma stays with that generation. For people who are basically 35 and older, you're pretty much 10, 15 when the Vince thing happened. You would actually remember that period. And you remember I remember walking past news boxes and stuff back then where they were on every corner. It was like front page of the Toronto Sun was like, Vince Carter did this, Vince Carter did this. Like they were covering it like crazy, you know? And like, if you got hurt at that time, I understand that you're still hurt now, but it's like skipping a generation. Kids who are 20 years old now are like bad at Vince. And I'm like, bro, you weren't even there. You weren't even there.
This is like when we did the Tangerine thing at like TMU and people were naming like Vince Carter. Our guy Josh Kim was named Vince Carter as his favorite player, and you clocked him on it. He wasn't even born.
I'm like, bro,
when the dunk contest happened.
Yeah, no, he was like, so that's what I'm saying. Like, well, it's skipping a generation. But
with anything, like I think this has just become like, unfortunately, one of those arguments where it's like, oh, it has to be like extreme. But like the thing for me is like, I'm actually really happy that Vince is getting this and the organization is doing all this. Yeah. I just personally don't feel the same excitement as maybe other people. I think that's okay. And that's like, and I don't think that means that like, oh, people are holding on to things and like not being able to let go of it. It's just acknowledging like everything that happened.
Where the anger comes from, especially now, where the anger comes from now isn't whether or not you're angry at Vince. It's the anger comes from people not feeling validated to feel angry at Vince. It's not about the anger at Vince anymore. It's literally people arguing that, yo, Vince is a legend, and people being like, yo, you're not supposed to call him a legend because he did this.
That's where I'm saying the extreme part comes.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but like how you feel about it, and that's why I like what Vince said too. Is like, I hope we can all just enjoy this moment because like this actually is the last time we get to litigate this. You know, like this was such a significant chapter of the Raptors. It's the first love that you ever had, right? And the Raptors and Vince were fully in love with each other. And then it was a terribly ugly breakup. And all bad breakups, there's lots of shit to go around on both sides. But when you think back on it, are you going to remember the love that you had or like how bad it broke up? And that's a perspective thing. It really is. There's no right or wrong answer. I'm not telling people how to feel. In thinking back on it, I'm just like, I just want other people to have closure. Because when Vince broke down in tears, you can tell that when Vince speaks about this, he knows in the back of his mind, like, there was love here, but there was also hurt here.
Sure.
And we never talk about the hurt anymore. And honestly, if Vince wanted to placate and even just assuage these feelings, he should talk about the hurt. He should address some of these things face on about like, okay, you know what? I actually didn't handle it right here, and I would love for him to go through example by example, like the play where it was like the against Seattle Supersonics, a team that doesn't even exist anymore. But it was like, yo, did he give away plays? Yeah, right. Yeah. And what's the context of the story behind that? I would love to hear a real conversation around that. I would love to hear a real conversation about did I ask out or not. And what was the promises made by management at that time? You know what I mean? I would love to hear his thoughts about like how the media characterized him in the moment, and if he felt that was fair or not in terms of sort of building his legacy. If he had that deeper conversation, I think that it would close the door even more. But ultimately, this is closure. His jersey's going to go up, and we're never going to talk about this anymore.
Yeah, no, that's fair. So yeah, the retirement ceremony, as we've mentioned, is November 2nd. Yeah. And, you know, if you can't make it to Scotiabank Arena that night, you know what's a great place to watch that game and watch the induction ceremony? Oh, man, you talking about Greta? Greta on King West, bro. Yo, pre-game, King of Portland? During game, post-game. Oh, man. Yeah, you've been there. I've been there, a nice man. arcade bar situation. Listen, man, I got to check that out. I got a card with points, and that's the nice thing, too, is like sometimes you go to a bar and you're like, honestly, like, it's cool to just be there drinking with people or hanging out with people and having some food or whatever. But sometimes you just want to be like, maybe I'm tired of the game. Maybe it's halftime. Like, what am I going to do for 20 minutes at halftime at a bar? Yeah. You know, other than like a little Papa shot. You know what I mean? Like, go out, do some Papa shot. Go, you know, shoot some zombies. Like, you know, those little arcade games. So it's nice. It's a really nice spot. And I know a lot of people obviously are around King West, you know, like your boy. What? Yeah. So. Yeah, for sure. And we're actually planning on some live events during the season. We've submitted some dates to the Greta team, trying to figure that out. So once we have more details, we'll definitely let everyone know. But it's like a watch party thing? Well, we're going to do a watch party. Bring out some special guests. Live post-game show. Maybe have some, you know, players join us. Yeah. But we'll make sure we run those requests by Raptors PR. That's what you need to do. Make that happen. Absolutely. So yeah, man. Shouts to Greta. Shouts to Greta, though. Lastly, before we wrap up, Bing Bong, big blockbuster trade. Bing Bong happened last Friday. Yeah. Knicks and Wolves. Cat, Big Meow, the big husky, is heading to the Knicks, who are trading Julius Randle, Dante DiVincenzo, and a first rounder from Detroit to Minnesota. Man, we
Yo,
can bring
first
it.
rounder by,
Yeah,
by Detroit is actually quite valuable these days.
yeah, that's
I might be super protected.
That's not going to be a Mark Tatum call.
Yeah,
If you get Adam Silver, it's a good trade.
Ooh.
I want to know. We can break down the
Yeah.
different parts of it, but straight up, your initial reaction: who won this trade?
My initial reaction was I was at a cottage this weekend with some friends. I had like at least 5-6 beers. I'm just vibing.
I was at Hong Shing.
You were at
a
Shing?
tasting
Ooh,
menu.
what were you tasting, man? Yams?
Yeah, Yang
Secret
dining
menu?
room.
Dining room.
Highly recommended
Yeah.
tasting. By the way,
Very jealous that you were invited there and I was
Yeah.
at the cottage, but still I'm vibing out and I'm like, yo,
Boom. The,
I'm like, there's like
the
20 people.
Shams notification hits.
Yeah, we got a cool. There's got to be a.
The Sham God.
You can't just say like Shams bomb, like
No, we
Woj
got
bomb
Sham
hit.
God.
Yeah, like Sham. I mean, if you want, sure, but like
The God Sham God.
the
hit.
Sham Shave news dropped, but like,
Yeah.
I think for me immediately I was like, well, I mean, the Knicks got a lot of firepower now. You don't think so? Like for me, I really like this for the Knicks. I
So
think,
if you were to pick a winner, you're picking the Knicks.
yeah, because I think we were talking about this before. Like, you know, the teams, I think we're putting into tiers. And one of the things I was saying about the Knicks was just like, it's going to be mad awkward when Julius Randle is like trying to be like, hey guys, like you guys had such a great time last year. Let's build on it. And it's like, you weren't there for that.
Yeah.
You
I don't
know?
know. My initial reaction was like, I hated it for both teams.
Really?
Because I feel like from the Knicks side, I have my questions about Cat. Like, even though I think he was coming off a pretty strong like postseason
Yeah.
with the Wolves. But like with the Mikal Bridges trade and then this trade, like the Knicks are now locked in. Like this is their team now. Like
Yeah,
this is the
sure.
team that they're gonna come compete with now.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if this should have been their last move to get Cat.
Well, if you compare it to last year's playoff run,
Yeah.
you're essentially going from Dante DiVincenzo to Karl-Anthony Towns.
Sure.
And I guess you're losing
Hartenstein
Arnstein as well. And you're
Yeah.
coming up with Bridges.
Yeah, but now, like, I don't know, they're pretty thin too. Like, I don't know if you care about that in terms of their depth.
I mean, the depth can be addressed at some degree, but
Like, is there, I just don't know, like, is there a superstar in that group or are they trying to build this,
Brunson.
like, all right.
It's a question of how much you believe in Brunson. And I think that, like, they clearly have believed in Brunson. Brunson has been really, really good for them in two
Maybe
playoff
I
runs
am
in a row.
underestimating Brunson.
I think we all are, because I think if maybe it's because we were in China at that time, and I was like, "Yo, do you want to come to my room to watch an illegal stream of Jalen Brunson
And I'm like,
playing
nah,
against
man,
the
just still throwing up,
Sixers.
bro. No.
Yeah, honestly, probably, but like, he was incredible through.
But am
so
I
many key
underrating
moments.
Bridges? Am I underrating Towns?
Well, okay, so now in the starting lineup, outside of Josh Hart, like you have, like Towns is good for 20.
Sure.
Bridges,
But
is
is
good
Towns
for
going
like
to want his touches too,
15, 18?
or is Towns just going to
No,
slide right in
Have you
and
seen
be like,
Towns these days? Towns is not like a give me the ball and clear out on the post kind of guy. Towns
right.
is like a perimeter, like shoot 10 threes a game type of guy. And
Sure.
like in terms of like who's the best 3-point shooting center in the league now, it's like Towns. It's not close.
yeah, no, I
Right?
mean, I think their spacing is great now.
Their spacing. Did you see the spacing when they played in? Like it was like crazy because it was like Josh Hart, Precious Achua. Like they weren't guarding any of those guys. It was like Dante DiVincenzo had to hit
Like,
miracle
just
threes.
standing next to each
That's what
other.
I'm saying. Like they weren't guarding Hardenstein. He got like little push shots and stuff.
But is this roster where you're like, oh man, this is a championship team?
I think they're closer to a championship team than they were.
But now
before
they're
the
locked
trade.
in. Like this is the team now.
Who
Like,
else were they
where's-
gonna? What are you gonna get?
What's
What
the
are you gonna
other
get for
upside
Randall?
though?
What are you gonna, like? Let's say Randall comes in.
I wouldn't mind
he
if they
throws
just-
off the vibes.
Yeah.
Like what?
I
What are
would
you
have
getting
just
from
waited
that?
to find out because you can find someone for Randall. And then why didn't you just?
Who are you finding for
Could you
Randall?
not go get like trade for JV or like a lesser center to just
Bro,
fill a role?
No.
I'm just saying you're bumping all this money in for Cat.
I think number one, like the spacing conditions for the Knicks are night and day compared to like last season. It really
Yeah.
is. Like it's just way harder to double team those guys. I think you still have what is nice with their wing core is they can make up some of Cat's weaknesses. So like you can have Cat sort of be more of a traditional center, I suppose, rim protector. But we know he's not a great rim protector, right? We know that that's why they got Gobert in the first place in Minnesota, and that's what caused them to win more. But I think on the flip side, you have really great wing defenders. You have like literally two of the very best wing defenders in the league in OG and
Yeah,
Mikal
Bridges for 82 games, OG for 50.
Yeah, well, you know, hopefully they're there for the playoffs for the Knicks. But like, I don't know. I think also one of the lessons for me taking out of last year's playoffs is like 5-out spacing can win at an elite level in the playoffs. Now, I think they should play at a higher pace now than they did in previous years. But it's also easier to play at a higher pace when you got spacing. So
I only worry about the depth, and I know like come playoff time, whatever,
Yeah.
you're playing like 7 guys.
It's Tibbs. He's playing 7 guys regardless.
But this is what I'm worried about. Is like we already saw them wear down. OG for me is someone who, like, for better or worse, is frequently hurt.
Okay.
I don't know if there's another player. There's probably not another player on that roster where I'm worried about, but it's like you start putting on those minutes on these guys, especially during the regular season, going into the playoffs. Like that's a worry for me too. I just feel like if you make all these moves, I gotta feel like, okay, like this team is like, and for me, I'm like, oh, I don't know. Like, I don't know. They're a really good team.
For me though, they're clearly the second best team in the East behind Boston.
You have them above Philly.
I had them above Philly regardless, but I think that's because I didn't believe in Philly that much.
So
I just don't fundamentally believe in
So right now
Joel
on
Embiid.
Betway, the Knicks have 5.0 decimal odds to win the East. The Celtics are the favorites, followed by the Knicks and Sixers at 5.0. The Bucks are at 7.0. So you're saying if you were to choose between the Knicks and the Sixers to come out of the East, you would go with the Knicks here.
This is just to win the regular season?
Just to win the East. To come out, to make the finals.
Make the finals.
Yeah, to win the East. Setting Boston aside, if another team outside of Boston is going to make the finals, you think the Knicks are the best threat?
I actually do. Yeah.
Okay.
I actually do. I really like this move for them. I think that like they actually have quite a bit of like their depth isn't even bad. Like you got Robinson, who when he's healthy, he can be a good backup center for you.
I've seen some summer tapes of Tyler Kolek.
Kolek, like I was high on Tyler Kolek even before the draft.
They got campaign sitting sideways.
Oh, sure, yeah. I guess he's there, man. This guy just double parked parallel sideways.
We got Precious.
You got Precious. Okay, maybe we don't see the bench that much.
We got Jericho Sims, Chris Jericho Sims, Y2JS over here.
No. But I like the fit. And I also think that, like, honestly, low-key, I was pretty impressed with Towns' post defense.
Okay.
Which you do need a post defender if you go up against the Sixers eventually. And like they did lose that with Hartenstein. Yeah. Who was able to at least muscle up against Embiid sometimes.
Well, if you like the Knicks like Will, make sure you hit the QR code here. Go on Betway. You can bet on the Eastern Conference winners right now. Yeah. And the Knicks are at 5.0. So
if you had to bandwagon one team in the East, who would you bandwagon? Outside the Raptors, obviously.
Bandwagon.
Like just straight bandwagoning. Like let's say for playoff purposes.
Unfortunately, I'm a bandwagon the Sixers, man.
Really?
They're a more interesting team to me.
I don't know, man. I might bandwagon the Knicks. I think I did that last year too. I kind of really like the Knicks, man.
Okay, we can do that. Yeah, well. on the Wolves side, I'm just like, I understand from a money standpoint.
I think it's because they're broke.
You're getting rid of Towns. Yeah, and this clearly doesn't improve the team.
Right.
On the court.
Right.
I mean, I like DiVincenzo, but what is he going to be coming off the bench for them? Randall. I don't know how Randall's going to fit over there next to Ant and like Gobert. You lose your defensive identity with Randall now there. That was just a team that took out Denver and played such great defense.
Yeah.
And I felt
Cat was
huge
important.
in that.
He was literally guarding Jokic.
Yeah, and now you're just not even giving this team a chance. I felt like they were in the top tier of the West.
Yeah, you
coming into
them.
the season, especially because I just was betting huge on Ant. The fact that they had this team, now I feel like I got them probably, I don't know, like in that second, third tier now.
Right. I think they probably looked at it like, well, number one, I think the biggest impetus is Towns is, I think, making like $60 million for the next 4 years. Mm-hmm. They were like, all right, we got.
It's a money trade.
We got out the money.
This was a money trade.
Obviously, Randall makes a lot too, but not as much. And also, he's like got a player option at the end of the season, so it's more flexibility on that front. I think they're looking at it like we still need a secondary creator. Maybe that's Randall.
Yeah, Randall's a primary, secondary, and tertiary creator.
Yeah, Randall. I don't know.
He'll create anything on any possession.
Randall got the ugliest buckets in the league. Like in terms of guys who will give you an ugly bucket.
Can't you just see a scenario where he's like taking possessions away that you feel like should be Ants?
Yeah, I don't see exactly. I don't see a natural synergy between those two guys.
Right.
Now, it wasn't a perfect synergy between him and between Ant and Cat either.
Sure.
But at least like you could play pick and pop. You know what I mean? It's like more smooth. Like it's hard to just play a 2-man game with Randall in the same way.
What about their defense now? Like, do you think they've taken a huge step back, or do you think?
No, I think they still have the reasons they're good on defense is they got obviously Rudy Gobert guarding the paint. They got Jaden McDaniels. And then they got Ant, who like when he's locks in on ball, he's actually really, really good on ball defender. But Randall, we'll see if he can do the same post defense. Like let's say for example they match up against Denver. Yeah. Can he do what Cat did against Jokic? We don't know.
I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, I don't know. And then if you try to trade Randall again, like there's just not gonna be that much value. Like,
well, he's a free agent at the end of the season, I think.
Exactly.
So I guess that money's gonna go up.
Yeah.
That's
It's
gonna
interesting
leave.
though, because I think there was one question going back to the Raptors. Like they asked Masai, like, what do you think of the new CBA and how that's affecting things?
Sure.
And he's like, I refer to my nerd Bobby Webster for that one.
Yeah, where were you today, Bobby?
Bobby was off to the side.
Oh, okay.
As always, yeah.
Day
A little
off,
bit- no, he was off to the side.
Oh,
bro.
okay,
No, but
okay.
he nodded at me,
Just checking.
Flashed me the peace sign. I was like, hit him
See you
one
on
of these.
Dundas, bro.
Yo, Asian Mafia, bro. See you in Montreal, bro. See you on Saint Laurent, bro.
Yo, come out for my birthday, bro.
Yeah, actually, though. Let's try to make that happen. Let's actually try to make that happen.
But yeah, so you're talking about the CBA.
I think the one thing is you are seeing teams like really, really weird of taking on big contracts. And there's certain teams that are going for it. Like the Knicks are going for it. The Sixers are going for it. They have 3 max guys.
Sure.
Right? The Knicks obviously are going for it when adding all these players. The Celtics are going for it. They should because they just won the title and everything.
And the Wolves are kind of like, yo, we're gonna
And the
take a
Wolves were
step
like,
back.
they're kind of doing what Denver did. They're like, well, we kind of hit the, a really good season, but how about we do this? And it's like, no, like,
I just hate when trades happen because it's like money first. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
This was not a basketball trade for the Wolves, and that's the tough thing for me.
Yeah. No, I don't know. It feels like everyone's shocked. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm bumping Denver back up and bumping Minnesota down.
Okay.
Yeah, so I like Denver now after seeing Russell Westbrook's vibes at training camp
Yeah.
for 2 days.
Russell has changed teams. How many times has he changed teams, man? This
I
guy,
think he's on his 7th team in
it's
8 years.
crazy. This guy was in OKC for a decade.
Yeah.
Took a bunch of their records, won MVP, and then since then he's just team to team. Remember watching the Wizards, Russell Westbrook?
Oh man,
You remember he got
Russ and Beal.
he got that. That's why I say Russ and Beal. Wait, what happened to John Wall?
Who was their third guy? Was it Porzingis?
I guess, yeah.
Yo, they were mid, but they were my mid three.
What was going on there? Then he was with Houston. You know what I mean?
we should.
Then Clippers Russ, Lakers Russ.
Yo, when there's a dead week, we should draft our mid 3, man.
Yeah, well,
Jerome tells us he's
sure
on
you
his
wanna
he's on his 6th team. That
sure
seems low.
it does seem low, but there's it's 6 teams in 6
Well,
years.
Jerome's not counting his 2 stints in Utah.
Oh,
he
yeah,
just popped it and got
right.
waived.
Yeah, that's right. Nah, Russ in Utah would have been crazy, man. They would have caused race riots.
Oh man. Anyways, that is the cat trade.
Yeah.
We'll see what goes down. And that's it, man. We're heading to Montreal.
Yeah, man.
Gonna have a lot of content.
Send us your
for training
recommendations. Send us anything, really. You know what I mean? We're looking for a place to ball.
Oh, we are? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, if you got a court to recommend to us, let us know.
Yeah.
Indoor, of course. I mean, I'm not trying to be bougie, but let's come
Yeah,
on.
we're in the center of the city, I believe.
Yeah, we in the heart of the city.
We're in the heart of the city, don't
Raptors
dox.
practicing at UCAM
Yeah.
Sport Center.
Okay.
Catch your boy at Barry UCAM, not to take the transfer.
If you own restaurants, if you own coffee shops, if you
all
own any
that.
retail space, just hit us up.
Absolutely.
Come through and say hi.
Yeah, we're already gonna meet up with a couple friends, but seriously, you know how much I love the city of Montreal. You know how much love I got for the Mile End. We're gonna be in that Mile End. But otherwise, it's gonna be fun, man. Are you excited? Are you excited after media day? First day of school, now you want to get A's in all your grades.
Yeah, I'm excited.
That's how
man.
I'm feeling with the pod, man.
No, I'm excited to get this show going, man. It seems like we've been doing a lot of stuff during the summer, but now it feels like we're gonna finally get going. So.
There you go. So we want to say first off, once again, thank you to all our partners. Thanks to Betway. Shouts to Tangerine. Shouts to Division 88 with the studio, and shouts to the Nation Network. Shouts to the Hello and Welcome podcast officially at the media days and at practices. And I'm just happy we're here. We spent a whole summer together trying to organize, trying to plan, and now we can finally show you guys what it is. So thanks everyone for listening. And you've been listening to the Hello and Welcome podcast presented by Betway.